Welcome. I'm Janet Jassal, Global VP at Blueshift, and I want to welcome two special guests from AMN Healthcare, Kyle and Alex. Can you two briefly introduce your roles and what AMN Healthcare does?
Yeah, so my name is Kyle Sandsmark. I am the Senior Director of Digital Marketing here at AMN Healthcare. AMN Healthcare is essentially a full-service healthcare staffing organization. We support clients, so thinking healthcare facilities, find staff, and then we also help those individual clinicians, physicians, allied healthcare professionals find jobs. So we are essentially what we call it like a full service industry, really empowering the future of care, really across both the client and candidate experience.
Nice. Alex?
My name is Alex McEwen. I'm manager of Omnichannel Solutions at AMN, and I lead the Omni team in the implementation of all Omnichannel solutions, including Blueshift, to advance our capabilities in terms of communicating with, marketing to, communicate digitally with candidates for nursing, allied professionals, physicians across the board.
Thanks for the introduction. Talk to us a little bit about your most significant challenges that you face. You both alluded to matching clinicians with healthcare facilities. Describe how Blueshift helps address some of those challenges.
Really, our biggest challenge is we have, at any time, thousands and thousands of jobs out there. And it really comes down to trying to identify and match the right clinician to the right role. I mean, we get down to the level of specificity of trying to figure out which facilities are best for brand new healthcare professionals versus someone who's been in the industry for several years. So we just try to figure out kind of preferences ultimately at the end of the day. Where does someone want to go? What shift do they want to work? And then we tap into our knowledge of being an organization for 40 plus years to really kind of help a seamless marriage ultimately at the end of the day and matching that right person, that right job. But with all that, and again, with the thousands of jobs that are out there, it is tough kind of trying to pinpoint the right person for the right role. And so that's kind of always a challenge, I think has been for us.
Makes sense. Alex, do you want to add anything to that?
I think in general, when we think of targeting the right people for the right opportunity, we're looking for somebody who's nearby and they have a short commute, and we actually have the exact opposite. And so just solving for the geography challenge of where does somebody want to go work a temporary assignment for 13 weeks, and then adding on top of that, are they qualified? Do they meet the right level of experience to match to that facility and their opportunity to ensure the level of healthcare that facility wants to provide for the patients. And ultimately, at our heart is that goal of maintaining the highest level of patient care across all these health systems.
Yep. Makes sense. Talk to us about how Blueshift helps address these challenges.
We've been able to, see success with Blueshift at the end of the day is, again, given the fact that we have so much kind of first-party data. So to be able to comb through things really in a quick and organized facet, how do we be fast as possible in matching those clinicians to those specific roles? Because our industry is very competitive, and these roles and these jobs and opportunities go very quickly.
Can you describe a little more the clinician's journey, and then how do you balance self-service tools with recruiter assistant experiences in supporting the clinicians?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we always try to thread that needle between leveraging and utilizing technology to make us be more efficient and streamlined, but then also knowing at the end of the day that this is very a hands-on kind of white glove experience that we're going through. So, typically most of the time clinicians are coming through, obviously via, a certain source and, showing interest in a job. They might be liking it or hearting it or favoriting it, ultimately maybe getting to the place of an application. I think we have a good mix of, recruiter and as well as technology. So for someone who's brand new, what we don't always know right away is, again, like, hey, is this your first time traveling? Is this, your second time traveling? What was your past experience like? So being able to have that really personalized human white glove kind of touch really is critical at the very, beginning, especially when it's someone who's brand new to our database. But then I think once we figure out who that person is, I think that's really when our technology arm can really kind of start to take over and supplement what's being done on the recruitment side.
Okay. Describe for us the steps you've taken to use the first-party data for tailored communication across those channels. I think you guys use SMS, push notification, and email. So how has the utilizations of these channels changed since adopting the Blueshift platform?
Prior to Blueshift, we had those channels, and we were able to send notifications to our clinicians via our AMN Passport mobile app, we were able to send SMS messages and we were able to send email marketing campaigns and email messages to our clinicians. However, through those 3 different platforms, we did have a team that could sit on top and understand that each of those platforms were related to each other and that they had impact on the experience for the candidate in terms of receiving those communications, but we didn't have coordination around it. So adopting Blueshift enabled us to pull all of that experience into the Journey Builder and Blueshift and allow us to say, if they receive this message via mobile app push notification, then pass on that email and then wait for their response before sending another communication. Ensure that the clinician wasn't just receiving the same message across 3 channels at the same time every time, and make just a much better experience. And then in addition to that, just build off of the preferences of the clinician and communicate with them in the platform they prefer in the moment. So that's really been the largest difference from a starting point, is just as opposed to those communications going out in silos, now they were coordinated within, through Blueshift and improve our relationship with the clinician.
Alex, you had shared some metrics earlier around pre-Blueshift and then over time how that shift has happened. Can you share some of that information?
Upon adopting Blueshift and completing the implementation, getting all the population moved over, we did have a concerted effort where we wanted to move to more of a mobile-first perspective. Previously, we had, some set of communications going out of the mobile app, and we were, I would say, email first in our approach to communications. We've changed, I think, from being probably 90% email before we started to, I think, email is now not the majority of sends. I think AMN Passport mobile activity has grown to being number 2. And yeah, we just want to continue to push that because we have a very powerful mobile app that can do a lot of things for a clinician and really enable them to manage their assignment, find new opportunities, manage their hours, receive their pay stubs.
Is it fair to say that at the beginning of the journey, you were heavily reliant on email, but now you have a much more diversified way of communicating across email, mobile push, and SMS?
Diversified as well as preference-based. We know either as defined by our clinicians, whether they prefer to receive communications on one channel versus another. And then with Blueshift, we also know where they haven't set those preferences, but Blueshift can help us with their engagement rates across channels and help us guess at which communication they would prefer to receive, where they would be most likely to respond. So we've just been able to continue to, increase engagement rates while increasing volume of sends across multiple channels.
Tell us, how have click-to-open rates changed over time? What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, click-to-open rate is something we started to measure when we implemented Blueshift. So prior to that, we were just very much open rate and click rate based, but to help flatten out the absence of opens from SMS, we moved to just measuring click-to-open rate. And what we've seen is over time, as we've implemented, all of the end-to-end journeys and then expanded upon those within Blueshift, we've been able to increase the volume of sends, but with that, we've been able to actually increase engagement. And so even though we're sending more communications to active candidates, they're engaging more so with that. And we've seen that grow from the establishment of our baseline, which at the end of 2023 put us at about, just almost 19% in terms of a click-to-open rate. And then thereafter, we set a goal for 2024 to get to 20%, which we thought was a good measurable goal. What we actually found is that through the increased use of first-party data and the expansion of personalized job recommendations, we were able to increase that CTOR. So by the end of 2024, we actually closed with a 30% CTOR, just over a 30% CTOR, and a 50% gain from end of 2023 to 2024 we were very happy with that.
Yeah, that is amazing.
From setting a goal to finish at 20% or have some sort of modest 10% increase year over year, and then close with a 50% increase was very nice. And then as we've continued to really drill into using first-party data to personalize job recommendations and personalized communications, we just continue to see the CTOR increment up over the first couple of months of this year. And so still early data in 2025, but we've actually seen continued increase from where we finished 2024. And we're just, because of that continuing to invest in where can we get more first-party data, how can we improve the specificity of the recommendations that we make to clinicians in terms of open opportunities that are available, and make sure that the right candidate replies to the right opportunity and creates the right match for the healthcare systems.
Given that AMN Healthcare has so much data, 40 years worth, can you talk about the various sources of data that you're integrating to build these types of personalized clinician journeys?
Yeah. So 40 years of data is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, fair enough.
But you know, the initial lift was difficult. We were able to really hone in on where the most important data was, the most recent data. But, you know, AMN has a native applicant tracking system. So for every clinician that applied to a job and worked with a recruiter, we have records of any job they applied to, and if they went on assignment for that job, data relevant to that. And then in addition to that, more recently with the launch of, you know, better analytics suites from our website and the launch of our mobile app, AMN Passport, we were able to identify where we could get, you know, more recent user analytics data, and then that historical data from our CRM and applicant tracking systems, of which we had, you know, decades worth, and identify what the recent data was. Because, you know, a record from somebody who started their career 20 years ago with 2 years of experience, the job they're applying to now, not the same job that they applied to 20 years ago. So finding the most relevant data for each of those candidates and making sure that we brought that into Blueshift, that enabled us to really just target the right audience with the right message.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. All right. So now let's switch gears to talk about omnichannel strategies. Talk to me a little bit about which strategies have been effective in building that omnichannel journey for those clinicians.
Yeah, I mean, I think the initial strategy, which we're reaping the benefits of now, is first-party data. It was mobile first and first-party data, right? Like, how do we get the most relevant data for each candidate, and how do we push the usage of what is the highest volume of activity, people on their mobile devices? And especially for those clinicians who have the AMN Passport mobile app, that affords us our best opportunity to offer the most personalized experience, get them to the right page, to the right opportunity. If they're missing a credential and they're about to go on assignment and they need to get that satisfied, if they need to get a reference to go on assignment. So at any part in the funnel, not just matching them to jobs, but also making sure that they've checked all the boxes ahead of starting an assignment, and making sure they have their hours reported correctly so that they can get paid the next day. And then when they're finishing assignment, how do we get them to go on to another assignment, which will hopefully make them equally happy when they're done. So just being able to stay in contact with and make the most of that AMN Passport experience that we can control and continue to improve based on the clinician feedback, make it personalized for them and make it to the benefit of them. And so that's been the largest strategies that we've followed the first couple of years, and now that we're in a more of a mature state in terms of that program, now starting to evaluate what other channels can we evaluate, whether it's WhatsApp as a channel or whether there's some chat functionality that we can evaluate in terms of net new functionality.
So that leads to my next question, which is what Blueshift platforms or features have had the most significant impact on improving clinician engagement?
Yeah, and I mean, to start, it was definitely just making use of communicating with notifications into the Passport mobile app. And then I'd say since then, we've made use of certainly ad syndications to, you know, be able to serve complementary messaging to audiences on third-party platforms with ads that, you know, complement the messaging within the communications, email, SMS, and push within a journey. That's made a big impact. And then I think the other one that we're continuing to pursue and develop our ability to create impact is just taking advantage of the custom cloud apps, being able to build more custom integrations of sending data inside of AMN from Blueshift to our other systems.
Kyle, I have a question for you. Talk to us a little bit about how you use the Blueshift platform to manage the life cycle of the clinician. Everything from the beginning where you're onboarding to extending assignments to transitioning between roles?
We definitely leverage it a lot, in different ways kind of throughout their journey and their experience. Healthcare professionals, when we think about nurses or physicians, like they're on the go. They're not always sitting in front of their computer waiting for that next email to come through. So to be able to leverage, just a quick text that just says like, hey, we've matched you up to 10 jobs, like let us know if you're interested. And so to either have that, communication there or to have them, click a button, I think has been pretty helpful for us. And then when they, progress, I guess kind of more so like on assignment, we do different touch points just based off of where they're at. So, you're thinking about a 13-week assignment, there's a lot of things that could happen. And so to be able to, leverage our technology, whether it is, again, during kind of a full omnichannel approach, but, just kind of check in, see how they're doing, see how their first day orientation might have gone. We can leverage the use of surveys, so powering that as well too, just to find out, what's most important to them. And then we just kind of pour all of that data and first-party data in so that when they are getting ready to maybe end their assignment or to extend or to rebook or go somewhere else, we already kind of know like what they're interested in. Before all this stuff was created, and now we have this great robust data set that, we can mobilize and at any point just be able to be like, oh, well, we know that you're interested in this, this, and this, or, your survey results were X, Y, and Z. We can then just kind of leverage that and send job recommendations, whether it's, through their mobile app or send them a text with, hey, would you be interested in this brand new job, or they're interested in extending, and to have that kind of quickly on the ready has been pretty powerful for us.
Yeah, I like that they're able to use the AMN passport to do a lot of that communication and all of the data and all of the magic that happens behind the scene. It's seamless, right? For them, it's a great experience you provided without having to worry about all of that. What can you share about goals for further enhancing the candidate experience, maybe by lifestyle preference, geography, and so forth? And maybe tie that into how you see your partnership with Blueshift evolving to support those objectives.
It's fun and interesting to kind of think about the future and where we want to go, because I think for us, it's how do we be everywhere to everybody as best as possible, knowing that, in a perfect world, right, they're seeing our text or they're seeing our push notification and they're responding. And we've seen tremendous growth since being able to, onboard Blueshift, just even have that level of detail. But then to take it kind of beyond that when they're, interacting with our websites or interacting with other kind of things outside of platform, to be able to kind of leverage, we've talked about utilizing AI in certain aspects or pulling in kind of different data sets or different content. That's, I think, been a big opportunity for us. So I think that's kind of the one point of it, is just kind of to expand kind of our footprint beyond just, the traditional media, and leveraging, again, Blueshift to do that. And then I think the second part is just, again, it's kind of speed and being able to run different tests. And, I know there's some great things on the horizon within Blueshift that I know I'm really excited about around, being able to utilize AI and have that kind of help with our campaign development. And so, when we're thinking about testing, A/B testing and analyzing data, and so to be able to have that, tethering with Blueshift's capabilities in the future to, cut down the time it's maybe taking by, 30-40% to send out a variety of multivariate tests and then analyze that data really quickly and then to act upon it even faster. And that's where I think the partnership with Blueshift kind of gives us that buffer, those guardrails to do that.
Yeah, you're alluding to the agentic AI capabilities. So I, as a marketer, had to, spend a decent amount of time doing A/B testing. It is so time consuming that after the first batch, I'm kind of like, you know what, we're good. We're going to, and it's like, that's not ideal. So the fact that you can continue to do that, by using agentic AI, I think will help you guys to improve those already impressive numbers even more. How does Blueshift help you feel more confident in all of the strategies that you've described when you're engaging with the clinicians digitally? How does it help you feel more confident?
When we seeded Blueshift with our clinician data to be able to identify and go through the process of identifying what is the most relevant data, and then being able to, look at that inside of Blueshift without being distracted by hundreds of other data tables that might exist within multiple databases. And so being able to start with what was a good prioritized focus and then build out from there. So as we've been able to launch and establish our baseline communications and then grow upon there and identify, the unique aspects of first-party data that improved our job recommendations and vastly improved the engagement rates with the, our ability to present job opportunities to our clinicians. And I think the next step that we're really excited for, which is that how do we improve our recruiters' knowledge of that activity, and that's where Blueshift has really helped us, one, identify the best data to have available to communicate with our clinicians, and then two, allowed us to distribute it in a very coordinated fashion across multiple channels, and now three, how do we start to feed that information back to our recruiters? And so that's where I think our ability to really provide that level of first-party data transparency back to our recruiters so they can maximize the relationship with each clinician, and not just about the opportunity, but with each clinician, and ultimately put each clinician into the best opportunity for them. And I think that will pay dividends in terms of ultimately creating that human relationship between AMN and the clinician.
Kyle, I'll ask you one last question, which is, if you could highlight one key outcome that the Blueshift platform has enabled for AMN Healthcare, just pick one, what would that be?
Yeah, I think I would tie it back, with some of the predictive insights that we've gathered from Blueshift, because I think if I had to just kind of summarize the relationship, it's been about confidence at the end of the day. When we talk about speed and trying to match clinicians with the right job, there's nothing worse than not having that match work, right? I mean, again, as a consumer yourself, if you're getting recommended for something that doesn't tie to you whatsoever, it's not a great user experience. And so having that confidence that we know that, when we think about predictive insights, that, we know it's taking a lot of our data and giving us, those recommendations that we can be quicker, but also still have confidence that the data and the intelligence is going to be accurate, is, again, super helpful. I think just having that confidence around those capabilities has been a big one for me.
Wonderful. Well, that about wraps things up. So Kyle Sandmark, Alex McKeon, thank you so much for sharing your experience at AMN Healthcare.